Well, my name is Brian Stewart. We're going to do a panel. Greg, Tom, and Taso. Okay, thank you, guys.
You get stunt pay for that.
Hello. Hi, man. So, show of hands at this panel. Throw it in the hands of people that have never been here. That's crazy, right? They've never been here. So all the old stories are new, man. These are all newbies.
Who has not seen Dawn of the Dead? Nobody.
Whoever raised their hand, that would have been a bad move. It would have been like a zombie swarm of people.
It's weird, it's my favorite film. Okay, this is about stunts, right?
Yeah, we're going to
Stunts,
yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
We're going to need to go through them alphabetically.
No, we can't do that. What are you doing? Well, will you do that when we're done? This is what all three of us get into. You want to do it right now?
The 16-year-old girl on Twitter.
Okay, I have the first question. How did you two meet?
In a dark alley.
No. I took a leave of absence from Carnegie Mellon University to do Dawn of the Dead before my senior year. We were classmates. And we physically outdid anybody else in the school. We were the top physical guys. We were acrobats. We were fencing partners. So when this happened, when Dawn of the Dead happened, it was only natural for him to come out. And before him, I did 16 stunts. I dove off that balcony into cardboard boxes down the hall, okay? He helped me orchestrate that, yeah.
So that means there was no stunt coordinator. That you were the stunt coordinator as well.
Coordinator, yeah.
So there was never, no, because this is interesting, which we never talked
They
about.
hadn't gotten their act together to hire a stunt guy. And I said, I can do that. Okay, so I did it.
So when you're doing a movie, you'll hire production designer, costumes, makeup, stunts, and each department will have a department head. But in a movie like Dawn of the Dead, and also some movies that are even being made today that are low budget films, they don't have the money to hire multiple people. So you hire one guy who just, in Tom's instance, says, yeah, I can do that, and the producer's really great. We're saving money because we don't have to hire multiple people. And technically, you were the stunt coordinator as well.
Every time a zombie got hit by a truck, it was me. When Jeannie Jeffries was kicked out of the truck, I put a blonde wig on, it was me. He shows up, there was a zombie walking around with a headscarf and a dark skirt.
Yeah, like that guy right there, he's got the scarf on.
Right. So Taso put her costume on, and he was dragged with one hand on the back of a car, while his other hand was pumping blood into his eyeball. So that all happened here.
So Tom, had you done stunts prior to Dawn?
No, I was a gymnast, and a gymnast is not afraid of the ground, so, I can't even look over the balcony now. I'm going to be 80 in November. It gives me, my knees quiver when I look over the balcony.
Wait, didn't you get hit by a car in Martin?
Yeah.
So that was before Dawn.
Yeah.
So technically...
Oh, so that, to answer your question, yeah. I was doing stunts, yeah.
Okay.
Before that.
Now, you did get hurt doing at least one stunt, right? You did get hurt, didn't you?
Oh, when I came off the balcony, I missed
Your feet.
the cardboard boxes. My feet I was in a golf cart in a wheelchair for 2 weeks. Then we finally did it again, but this time there were more cardboard
Did they
boxes.
tell you to aim for the boxes this time?
Yeah, no, that's a joke.
But it's funny because nowadays they would probably never let that happen because if Tom got hurt, the production could shut down. So instead of the production shutting down, they just wheeled you around.
Yeah.
But there was also another gag with the breakaway glass.
Oh, yeah, I drove a motorcycle through a store window. There was a guy that made the glass that became the window of the store. He made it on the floor, and it was this thick, okay? Luckily, I was driving a motorcycle, or I would have bounced off that damn thing. George kept a chunk of the breakaway glass in his office. He would bang it on his desk and say, look, this is the breakaway glass.
It never broke.
So yeah, I got hurt on that one.
Yeah, what they did, when you make breakaway glass, it's candy glass. So you have to heat it up, and usually you pour it into a mold. But what Tom's saying is they poured it on a section of the floor, but the floor wasn't even. So one side was probably about that thick, and then the other side was probably about that thick. So it wasn't even. It was breakaway glass. You want it to be even. And it's funny, I remember when I first saw Dawn of the Dead, the shots of the guys going through the store windows were very strange to me because they just built a little frame with a glass in it and you just drove through it.
No, it was big. It was big. Yeah.
Did you, off topic a little bit, did you discover dawn or night first?
I discovered night first because I grew up here, those of you that don't know that, and watched Schiller Theater. And Bill Cardell, he would, every once in a while, he would show Night of the Living Dead. And I think it was during production of Dawn of the Dead, they showed Night of the Living Dead on TV, uncut, in Schiller Theater. And then George was a guest afterwards, and they did an interview. What are you up
He's
to
in
now?
Bill Cardell, Laurie's dad, is in Night of the Living Dead as a reporter.
Yes.
He was also in my Night of the Living Dead as a reporter.
Right.
So it was, and there's a lot of people don't know that Bill Cardell was very influential in George's career because he introduced him to people that ended up helping to finance some of his movies. So when George went on Night of the Living Dead, went on Schiller Theater to talk about Dawn of the Dead, they had just stopped filming or were in the middle of when you guys shut down during Christmas. I think he went on to say, yeah, we're doing the next movie now. And I remember seeing that. So.
Jumping to something else, what's on my mind. When you guys were shooting Dawn, obviously the gore was extensive. And movies at that time were not. Were you expecting a lot of cuts, or were you just planning on releasing unrated? No, because at the time, unrated might as well have been porn, as far as
It took the unrated instead of an X.
Yeah.
Well, no, there was on the poster it said nobody under 17 admitted. There wasn't a rating, but it did say that.
Yeah. And that was a challenge to advertise in newspapers at the time, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah. But the interesting thing that a lot of people don't think about is because Dario Argento was a producer, Dario's synonymous with excessive gore and very operatic sequences.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the European cuts have more gore in them, because Dario felt more freedom.
They didn't have a rating system. They took it over there and became famous. It was a great movie over there, and it's much slower over here because they really hurt it with the rating system, and people didn't know what it was. It took years for people to go, wow, this is a great movie, because weird rating system, it's not good for you to go see this moral bullshit. So in Europe, they didn't have that. It was just a movie, just another great movie.
Except in England, where they would literally cut scenes out. They would cut giant chunks of the movie.
Hey, look, the only ray of sun is on your two friends out there, Jared. Look, the only sun is on them. Just an observation.
Not
That means you guys have to move every time the sun moves. You have to move and stay in the light.
Are you going to take questions?
Yeah, we're going to take questions too. I was going to ask Taso, are there any stunts, any gags that you got hurt doing? You make it out pretty well unscathed.
Well, when I did the car thing, we didn't think about it. That Volkswagen was front-wheel drive, so when it ran over the fence, it shot the fence and pieces of the mannequins back at me. So that didn't really hurt that bad. Then when I did the swing with the rope, we kind of knew what we were doing. I was hooked into a mountain climbing harness, but I attached the rope to the railing that I was jumping from. So like a clock, I just pendulum up and hit the bottom of the balcony. Not,
And he did it with one hand. The other hand had a sledgehammer in it. That's why he became Sledge. I was Blades, because I had knives and machetes all over the place.
Somehow this was all insured. Right?
Insurance.
OSHA approved.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Imagine 15 Harley motorcycles coming down this hallway.
I was thinking about that earlier, just how loud that must have been. There's one Harley in a parking lot, it's got some sound, but oh my God.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was incredible, incredibly loud.
Look, I mean,
Pagans.
the other crazy thing is, what fucking insurance company would say, yeah, you guys can just take over the mall?
Right.
Because
Some motorcycles through.
No, but that sort of goes to show, again, when you're dealing with a low budget movie and you're thinking like Friday the 13th, what do you have? Oh, we had a couple cabins and a camp. This was a brand new, like one of the first state of the art malls.
Indoor shopping.
And the reason that I also heard about Dawn of the Dead was because I was going to high school with a guy named Brian Wagner, and his dad was the liaison to the mall, named Bill Wagner. So he was the one that said, "Sure, you can drive motorcycles through here." And I remember after Dawn of the Dead came out, and I was so excited, and I would come to the mall. There were still track marks from the motorcycles. You'd go through JCPenney's, and there was black, tire marks still in the mall.
The only damage that occurred was one of the zombies stole a golf cart and drove it into one of these marble pillars. It was like $7,000 worth of damage. But there were all these motorcycles. Nothing ever happened. Yeah.
Well, those were proper bikers. They knew what they were doing.
Professional. Yeah. Professional gang.
Professional
The
guy.
pagans.
How did it go working with the pagans? Were they pretty affable?
They loved it.
Yeah.
They were nice guys. Butchie and what was the other guy's name? Thank you, Larry.
So
Nice.
I have a question. Was there any effect that you did in the movie that you had to reshoot? Because a lot of times when you do movies, you'll shoot it, and
the
then
helicopter ending.
But you didn't. But that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if it was a gag that maybe you didn't like how it worked the first time, and you wanted to reset it and shoot it again.
That was all one take.
One take.
One take. Yeah.
Was there time during the set?
One
You had to
take.
move that fast.
Thousands
It
of
worked.
one
It worked the first time, so we moved on.
Wow.
I mean, that's impressive because if you think of the quality of the effects in that movie.
No, just talking about with somebody. This was a low budget movie, so we had to make practical effects that we could make by hand in one take and do thousands of these effects. And now there's all these AI computer generated movies. Those are the cheaper movies because they can't afford to make physical effects anymore.
Well, I would disagree. They can afford to. They just choose not to because they're lazy.
They're lazy.
Because look, I mean, we've all worked on a lot of movies. When we did From Dusk Till Dawn, Tom would be on set acting, and I'd go to Robert on set, and Robert would say, "Okay, I want to slit that guy's throat, and I want to rip that guy's arm off, and I want to have a bunch of blood." And I would run back to the room, and we'd put it all together. And George was very much like that.
Right.
It's like you have a bunch of guys, and it may not be in the script, because I can guarantee you most of the gags in Dawn of the Dead weren't in the script.
Right.
They were improvised, and it would be like by you or George would come and go, "Hey, we need something here. What can you give me?" And that amount of freedom allowed
It breeds creativity.
absolutely.
You're allowing an artist to make art.
You're using the best of every single one of your people, and George trusted the people around him, and really part of what makes Dawn of the Dead so great was he's like, "I got these guys, and I'm just going to let them go free reign and have fun."
Well, when we were stealing the trucks, when they were stealing the trucks, I played a zombie in a jumpsuit that gets hit by a truck, and I fly backwards. Now, I had never met Marty Schiff before. He was one of the extras. So, yeah. So, I timed it so that I would run and hit a trampoline as the truck came and blew me. It looked like the truck was blowing me backwards. But before that, I went to Marty and said, "Can I fall on you?" So he was my stunt pad.
Human stunt pad. I have another. Can I ask questions?
Please.
I'm just asking questions because I'm here with these guys.
Yeah, we're all.
The helicopter zombie.
Yeah.
Did you ever test that?
No.
You just. Okay.
Just a one and done.
So again,
I knew it would work.
you know, you gotta understand. Yeah, you gotta understand. A lot of times nowadays, directors are like, well, we need to do a test. I need to see if it's gonna work. I'm not sure how it's gonna work and what it's gonna look like. But so you never tested it.
It had to be one take because Jim's head was a bunch of pieces held together by varying lengths of fish line, and we handed the line to them, to Gary Zeller, and he ran with it, and that's why the head looked like it came apart in pieces. Then we were below pumping the blood into his head. The helicopter blade was animated in later. It wasn't there.
So you guys were just behind the crates, right?
We were behind the crates when his head came off.
Right.
But when he fell, of course, we weren't there.
Sure. Were there any gags that George sort of pulled the reins and went, okay, too much?
No.
Really?
Never.
Too much. No.
Okay.
The first take in the film is when the late Tommy Lafitte, who died recently, bit his wife's neck.
Right, yeah.
That was the first thing we did. And the crew was like, oh my God, is that what this is going to be?
And he was like, me next.
And by the way, the audience had the exact same reaction.
Yes.
Because I always tell the story that when she shows up in the hallway and he bites her, I was like, oh fuck. And then you're like, oh, and then he bites her again. And that's in the first 7 minutes of the movie. So the rest of the movie, you don't trust anything that's going to happen because you've been put off guard in the opening of the movie.
Well, when he bites her arm, he really bit her.
Bit her.
And she screamed.
Yeah.
And George used that scream for when he bites her in the neck. Before that, you know. And at the beginning, when Jim Bappico blows the zombie's head apart, again, Gary Zeller, he tried to blow it from within. And it didn't happen. Nothing happened. I said, well, give me that goddamn shotgun. You know, and both barrels and the head blew up. You know.
Fritos, and what else was in the head? There was
Chicken,
there's barbecue, bits of stuff.
Now, is it correct that that head was the one that was initially planned for Fran's death?
that head was a cast of Galen because she was originally going to kill herself.
Suicide.
Right,
Like jumping up into the helicopter blades. Now we shot her body falling away from the helicopter after the accident, but we never not the accident, the suicide. But we never shot the suicide. You know. But we actually shot her body falling over.
So that it did happen. Okay. I thought that's where that head ended up.
But that was her head. The head that we made for the helicopter blade is what Jim shoots off at the beginning.
So what gave you the idea to use the real shotgun?
Because he was using primer cord and it wasn't blowing up the head. The head was...
You guys were using live ammo on the skating rink too, right?
Now, the food court used to be an ice skating rink. And we set up some mannequins with jewelry. And Taso and I fired real bullets.
That insurance company was so thrilled, I'm sure. For the fact.
Why they didn't...
Let's do another movie.
Listen, we had keys to all the stores.
All right, wait a second. I have a terrible story I'm going to tell because it was so funny, and now it's like I can't believe we did that. So we met at Carnegie Mellon University. Is this conservatory, the big, everybody knows the school downtown, and it's big and it's marble, and we would walk around and wait for someone to come around the corner. And he had a gun with a real gun with blanks, and I had a blood pack. And we would pretend like we were having an argument, and when somebody came around the corner, he would shoot me in the head. Can you imagine doing that now, today?
You'd be shot.
We would laugh, we'd get up, ha ha ha. These people would scream, oh my God.
America's traumatizing home
So
videos.
funny. We're like, oh my God, we got away with that.
How many times did you do that?
10. I don't know.
No, it wasn't even like, this is really funny, let's do it once. Then you went, wait, we have to keep doing it. I want to meet the 10 people that you traumatized.
That's where we invented the blood pack. So we like practiced a couple of times, and now we got it down. And I use it 100 times in my joust shows live at the Renaissance fairs because we can. Because Dick Smith gave us the blood formula, and we figured out how to hold it in your hand
Right.
and do a blood shot to the face. And we thought that was so funny.
But we didn't have the blood formula when we did Dawn of the Dead.
Was
That's why
weird German
that's why the blood looked so terrible
cartoon.
in the movie. It
Right.
looked like
Between Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, we're going to Friday the 13th. We stopped at Dick Smith's house and he invited us in and he gave us the blood formula and he showed us all this stuff for
Right.
free. He was like, here's all my 100 years of knowledge and experimentation.
because we did Friday the 13th Part 1 using Dick Smith's blood formula.
Right.
That's the reason Mama Voorhees had such manly hands.
I just heard on a
That's why Mama Voorhees had such manly
Oh,
hands.
when Betsy Palmer's head is cut off, it's on Tasso's bent over, the head was here. So her head goes off, his hand comes up with hairy knuckles to be her
It
hand.
was grisly.
I just heard today, somebody said they heard Betsy do an interview, and she said, oh yes, those weren't my hands, that was some nice Greek boy's hands. I didn't know that.
You said the blood looked so terrible. I always thought the blood looked really cool because it sort of gave
From Dawn of the
into
Dead?
that comic book feel.
It was part of
'Cause
the...
I mean, I always watch that movie and it's almost like Starsky and Hutch, the comic, in hell. You know what I mean? It's like Starsky and Hutch in hell. You know, it really lends itself to that.
No,
Because it was so fake, it was okay.
Yeah, it never bothered. You know,
Because
honestly,
it's so
in that film,
Kinda
that
bothered.
blood to me worked really well.
Oh, well.
Now in Day, it wouldn't have fit. You know, I think the tone of Day is so much
Well,
more
by-
real.
yeah, by
it's so
Day
much
we
more
had the
guttural.
formula.
I don't think it would have had the same effect.
No, I agree
The
with you.
level of the jump in special effects between Dawn and Day was, enormous.
I agree.
So, and speaking of Day, when the script was originally trimmed back, were there any gags that you're like, no, we're still doing that shit? Or did you just wing it like always?
Yeah, I can't be specific, but yeah, they cut it way down. Yeah.
There was
How many scripts? 5 scripts?
a lot of
A
scripts.
lot of different scripts.
But when we started prepping Day of the Dead, we started from the big script. And
With the color-coded zombies?
the color, yep,
Color-coded. Each
Yep.
one, the red ones did a
they
trick.
had
and the
different
blue ones
colors
did-
on them.
Yeah.
But the thing, and I was supposed to just be a soldier that gets killed, and then they see the head later. And then when George started cutting the script down, we were like, well, we already cast my head and we started making the head, so we got to keep that gag in the movie. So that's why they gave me a part in the movie, because we're like, well, we already started building it, so we should just use it.
And you were there all
I
the
was
time.
I was there. I was the first person hired. And then Taso and I were weed buddies.
That's
On
right.
that movie.
Well, they got some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's questions, right? We're going to come to the microphone, just throw a hand up, and we'll organize some way. Let's start with you, sir.
Wilbur.
It's a shill.
Look at that shirt.
So obviously, Greg, you were inspired by some of the things from Dawn of the Dead and your other zombie show. Tom and I were making a list. Is there anything you put in there that we may have missed that no one has said, oh, we saw you nick that from George?
Well, look,
Greg was going to medical school.
I was. Walking Dead was always for me a way to sort of pay homage to George's movies. And then we started getting a little ballsy, and there's a Freddy Krueger zombie in there. And in the next season of Daryl Dixon, which hasn't even aired yet, we did a zombie version of Tom's Jason from Part 4. So
Okay.
there's a zombie version of, and it was really cool. And we kept thinking, how the fuck are we going to get away with, in Madrid, having a zombie with a blue, like a jumpsuit or whatever he was wearing. But it turned out really great and looked really good. So we started like, oh, we got to put little homages in here.
Well, you're talking about Bub,
What
the
was in
airport
there?
zombie. There's even the Creep Show crate.
Yeah,
in the
Creep Show Crate was in there. We had a Russ Striner zombie. We had a Bill Heinzman zombie. We had a Lenny Lees. We did the machete gag. It literally shot for shot. And people on set were like, I'd go to the costumer and go, hey, I need a sweater that looks kind of like this. And they're like, what for? I'm like, don't worry about it. And then when we were shooting, and I would be like, okay, we're going to shoot this machete going in the head in reverse. And the writer's like, flipping through the script, trying to figure out where. Don't worry about it. It's in the new pages.
There's another question right there.
I love the Smokey and the Bandit show.
Yeah.
Hi.
Awesome.
Nice shirt.
Thank you.
You can
Oh.
lower the mic.
Sorry, I'm used to it. That's all right. All right. Before I ask my question of the two of you, I was just going to say I have yet to return Grand Illusions Part 1 when I borrowed it from my local library up in Minnesota when I was in like 1985.
I think I signed it.
Yeah, I don't know, but don't tell anyone, please. I've kept it. I never sent it back. But yeah, I was inspired and I had to keep it. So yeah.
Happy to hear that.
Thank you so much. All right. Greg and Tom, when are you going to cast Tom in an acting role in the Walking Dead universe?
We tried. We were very close a couple of times.
Wait a minute. I didn't ask her to.
I know, that's okay. We were very close.
Later.
We were very close. And there was, at one point, Tom
Got me in.
Tom had said, hey, look, there's this issue with the governor, and he kind of looks like me. And I said, yeah, he does. But he's been down to visit a bunch of times, but we never did it. But you know, can never say never, because one thing that I'm going to announce today that nobody knows yet is we're doing the effects for Twilight of the Dead. We start shooting soon. So I already said, Tom, you gotta come, we gotta get him in there as a
Well, he's responsible for me being in From Dusk Till Dawn. Didn't you suggest me to?
Yeah, and Land of the Dead, I had pitched to George that Tom play his character from Dawn, and he said, no, we've never done that before. We've never had a recurring zombie
I'm
from
the only one.
movie to movie.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but how cool would that be for the fans? And he kind of went, And I took to be, okay, we're going to do it. So I don't even know if he liked the idea, but I just kind of went with it, and we got Tom fitted with his outfit. And when you see him walking in the alleyway and pulling the machete out and slashing the guy, it was
It was awesome. And
It was
as a
amazing.
fan watching it for the first time, it's like, holy shit. Then I'm like, how the hell is he still alive and not rotten? But I don't care. That was awesome.
he was a little rotten.
Yeah.
Greg got me in Walking Dead in the first episode.
That's right.
That's right, under the truck.
Well, he knows because of the horse. Because there was a horse stunt. Remember, he rides the horse into Atlanta? And so I know Tommy Turvey and Tommy Jr. and his sister, and they had a trick horse, and they were doing the stunt. And Greg told me, he said, hey, there's a spot for you. So I came and did that.
When Rick is on his horse, riding down the street in the first episode and the zombies are chasing him, Taso was one of the zombies because he had horse training, and we wanted people that could be around the horse in zombie makeup. And then when Rick goes under the tank, he crawled under the tank.
When I got there, when we did the horse stunt, Frank Darabont, assistant, went to college with me. And so she was like, hey, and I went upstairs and had lunch with her and Frank. And he said, I got this idea and I want you to do it. And I said, okay, what is it? And he said, I want you, I got it. He's going to try to escape under the tank. I want a zombie to go down and think about it. He said, I want you to look at it and think about it and chase him under the tank. That was Frank's idea.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, great, I can do that.
Taso is a horse expert. He runs the West Virginia Renaissance Fair, which is happening right now. Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Yeah, come on up. If you have a question, please come up to the microphone. I know you.
Hi. Just like a quick question. It could be like for you two, like
You gotta talk closer.
Is this good? Oh Lord, Jesus. like for you guys, a stunt, and for maybe SFX for either of you, like, do you have like a favorite one that you've done, perhaps? Like, can you tell us?
Favorite stunt?
Like a stunt or SFX for either of you?
Well, I kind of like the helicopter zombie and cutting his head off in Day of the Dead. But they're all my children. I can't have favorites.
Oh.
I think for me, it's, I have a lot of amazing memories. And one of the reasons I come to this show every year, I always call Kevin like, hey, can I come again? Because it's like, it's like going to a high school reunion. All these guys, and Nick Mastandrea, who's up signing
Nick
autographs.
Mastandrea is here for the first time.
Yeah.
Nick Mastandrea is one of the guys who made the movie happen. He was there driving the whole thing. I can't believe he's here.
He was the guy who kept the morale on set.
Yep.
They did this thing called the grip test. And any new person, what you do is you go in and you go, okay, we want to see if you he came in our makeup room. And he goes, I want to make sure you can pass the grip test. So you put a funnel down the front of your pants. And the trick is you got to put a quarter on your forehead and you have to tilt your head down and get the quarter into the funnel. That's the grip test. But what would happen is as soon as you put the quarter on your head, somebody would have a giant bottle of water and pour it down the funnel and drench you. So as soon as you got by the grip test, then you were the next person that had to do it on somebody else. So Nick was the kind of guy on the set that was one of those people, him and Bomba and all these guys. But I'll never forget, in Day of the Dead, I get shot. And Steve Kershoff was our effects guy. And I played Johnson, and I'm holding the post with Phil Kellums on the end, and I'm struggling in Day of the Dead. And then they had 12 squibs on me, 6 on the front, 6 in the back. And we're getting ready, and the cameras are rolling, and Nick walks over and goes, hey, whatever you do, don't fuck it up, because everybody's watching. And I went, what? And they went, action, boom, 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 boom. So in the movie, I used to have this very confused look on my face of like, huh? And then when the squibs went off, and I just flew backwards, and Nick just stood there laughing.
Just to quickly build on her question, what is your favorite gag of Tom's? And Tom, what's your favorite gag of Greg's?
I would say Fluffy is my favorite
Fluffy from Creepshow.
gag of Tom's. And look, I mean, Creepshow's a great movie, but The Crate was always my favorite because it had a physical monster in it. And knowing that it was Tom's first foray into building an animatronic monster.
Right.
And when I was 15 years old, I was visiting Tom on Saturdays when I wasn't in high school and watched him build it. So I think Fluffy is an amazing.
Talk to Rick Baker. Did you talk to Rick?
Rob
I
Bottin.
talked to Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin, right.
And it's Bottin, not Button.
And he did the King Kong.
Did the Howling.
The Howling.
Yeah.
He taught me how to do it over the phone. What?
And the Thing, yes. Yeah, the Thing.
Hey, right.
So I love Fluffy. I thought Fluffy was good.
Hi.
Hi.
Whatever. Raise it up.
Hi. Do any of you have any really cool kills or monsters that you've never had a chance to do that you want to?
Yeah. But I'm not going to tell you because you'll copy it and go do it. What?
That is a good point.
Who's next?
Hi. What are the differences over time have you found with makeup application and the move from film to digital? Is there anything like in regards to like latex or gelatin that like you had to adjust for the film to digital switch?
Well, in The Walking Dead, Greg directed an episode with the heroes on their knees, handcuffed in front of a trough. And they were hit on the back of the head with a baseball bat, then their throats cut and blood would spray out. He didn't have to put appliances over the tubing because the visual effects guys would just erase it later. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, great.
And that was a huge time saving, because normally you'd put the tube down and then you glue the appliance on, and then you have to, pre-rig it. And blood is always very, very challenging. It has a mind of
You
its
want to
own.
make multiple takes.
Yeah.
Because it makes a mess.
We've done gags where like the actor is standing on the tube and you're back there pumping the blood and you're like, what the fuck? Why is nothing happening? And then they lift their foot and 50-foot spray of blood happens. So on the first couple seasons of Walking Dead, we did a lot. All the fights were all practical. The real challenge is when you get into high resolution like 4K, you can see every pore, and that's why there's been a big shift to silicone prosthetics versus foam latex, because foam latex is rubber and silicone absorbs light, whereas the light bounces off of foam latex. When you're doing a zombie, it doesn't matter because you don't have to worry about the translucency of it. So in a lot of movies now, when you see really great makeups, most of the time they're silicone because the light hits differently.
Now, if we had to tear Joe Pilato in half again, it would have taken 9 hours. So sometimes it's an economic reason, to do like multiple cameras.
Plus, it would have smelled again really bad.
Yeah. Well,
Leave the
but
fridge
you were
plugged in this time?
What?
Leave the fridge plugged in this time?
Yes. Well, it was plugged and they turned it off.
My question's for Greg. Is there a piece of advice that like Tom gave you that sticks with you today? And then do you two have any advice to give anyone who would love to make a movie?
Well, we had a joke on Day of the Dead, was if we would say, we need super glue. And he said, what if you're in the middle of the desert and you didn't have super glue? What would you do? And he would say that to us over and over again in an effort for us to be forced to be resourceful. And it's like, okay, you have to build and do whatever it is that's in front of you and be resourceful about it. So like when somebody on the crew would say, well, what if we need tubing for that? He goes, well, what if you're in the middle of the desert and you didn't have tubing? What would you do? So Tom was always, he was very, very, in my opinion, ahead of his time because he approached makeup effects as a magician and applied that technique to filmmaking, which nobody had really ever done before. Misdirection.
Well, the old black and whites that he's a fan of, that's where he's got that idea. He used magic tricks on the old films, and that's where a lot of the special effects.
Stage plays and stage shows.
That's right.
They would have to
Live
do
in front of people.
in
He's still
front of
doing that.
people.
I
So
got a
that
gag
was-
at the Renaissance fairs where I kill the knight, to pick him up and put him on the pier and put a sheet over him and light him on fire down to a burnt skeleton and take him away.
I gotta come see that.
That's a magic trick. That's a magic trick.
Or you just have to get a new guy every
That's from the
time.
Hanlon, the original Hanlon brothers, turn of the century. Are you feeling all right? Because you look kind of. Tilt the mic down.
Sorry, I'm a little short. So my question for Tom and Greg, when you guys do your really gory practical effects, do you have any experience with working with like specific like anatomy, or do you guys have like an expert or somebody come on that could like,
Are you kidding?
It's all of it.
I was a combat photographer in Vietnam. I saw incredible. I saw it all for real, firsthand.
What's the horrible book?
Huh?
Remember the book you had? The horrible.
Oh, the
Medical
medical
legal
legal investigation.
I was pre-med. My dad's a physician, and when I met Tom, I was intending to go away to college and become a doctor. And then I met Tom. So I was telling somebody yesterday, there was a day we were shooting with Tim DeLeo that played Miguel, gets bitten in the arm, and they chop his arm off. And the assistant director goes, George needs you on set right away. And I go running in, and he goes, so Greg, if we were gonna cut off his arm, do we need to tie it? What do we need to do to stop the bleeding? And I said, well, you have to tie a tourniquet, and then you have to cauterize it. So I was sort of the de facto medical advisor because I was in college studying pre-med. And honestly, that got me, when I moved to Los Angeles, that got me a job on a movie called Gross Anatomy, which was a movie about autopsy students. Disney movie. And then the next job I got was Dances with Wolves, because Kevin Costner saw the autopsy cadavers and said, oh, they look really realistic, and we need to make skinned buffalo for this movie that I'm directing. So having that knowledge and being able to apply it to the work that we were doing opened doors for me that you would never imagine. Like, oh, well, that guy was pre-med, so he can make buffalo that you can skin the hides off of.
About how many of those did you make?
Made 24 buffalo. We had one mechanical one, okay, and then we had 3 that we put on carts and pulled them, and then we had 20 that you could take the skins off.
So with the budget on that kind of film, you had plenty of room to work on all that big stuff, huh?
That was kind of a smaller budget movie, though. Dances with Wolves, because nobody has really heard of Kevin Costner as a director.
True. Yeah, I was just thinking it's so bulky. It had to have been a lot of. She has a question.
Oh, hi. Tom, this is a question for you.
Yeah.
How does one go from like horror aficionado to perks of being a wallflower?
Were you surprised to see me in that movie?
Actually, I was surprised to know you were a horror guy because I watched Perks of Being a Wallflower before I ever saw any of these movies.
People were expecting shotguns and zombies.
I didn't know what to expect. I actually didn't put the pieces together until my fiance told me like 3 weeks ago. I was like, holy crap, what?
Now the director was a big fan of mine, so I'm the first person he got in the movie. Perks of Being a Wallflower.
George had a hard time. Remember Night Riders? Everybody thought it was a horror movie.
Oh, because it was George.
Because it was George Romero. Remember Night Riders, everybody? People didn't know what to do because everyone just wants to pigeonhole you into this, and they saw George Romero, it's going to be a horror movie. And he had this romantic idea of the medieval knights doing justice, and he wanted to do other stuff. So that just made it more difficult.
More questions? Okay. While he's on his way up here, you do a lot of horse work. Is there any other animals that you would have to work with,
Me?
particular, dealing with on film?
I wrangled for a couple of movies, and I wrangled for some television and some commercials and stuff. I worked with alligators and dogs, some chinchillas.
The deadliest of them all, right?
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, how does it feel to you individually to have influenced culture so profoundly, entertainment culture and the lives of so many people here? How does it feel to you to have influenced?
All day long, people have been coming to my table and thanking me for inspiring them in their new quest to make movies or do makeup effects. So it feels great to inspire people,
Here we are. It's a kind of counterculture, right? Because people didn't know what Dawn of the Dead was, and when they saw it, they didn't like it. Some people didn't like it. Oh, you're not supposed to like it. And here we are, millions of people who loved it. And they said, oh, I don't care what you say, this is okay, and I like this. So you have to force them in. It's like Italian food. When we were kids, that was like foreign. It was weird. And Chinese food. Oh, what is that?
I'm Italian.
Not to me.
What are you talking about?
It is. Oh, when we grew up, the Italian restaurant was foreign. That was foreign.
I mean, look, the other thing we got to be grateful of is when Walking Dead came out, I was like, when it became as successful as it was, I'm like, finally everybody sees what I've always seen in the zombie genre. So for me, the crazy thing is having been a huge part of a show that has changed so many people's lives. And that's something that you can never put a price on, because collectively, everybody that's in this building that you're going up and saying hello to have had a hand in changing your life in some positive way.
It affected everybody subliminally, subconsciously. Somehow it all affects us, and it's okay. That's the thing, is that people said it's not okay. It is okay. It's okay, and here we are to say it's okay, and I want more of that. I love that. I'm going to keep coming back 50 years later.
Well,
Because it's fun. And we go through it.
most of the people that have come to my table weren't even born when we did Dawn of the Dead.
True, very true.
What do you think it is about Dawn of the Dead and that genre that speaks to people? Because like I was saying yesterday at another panel, there are no Titanic or Godfather conventions.
We talk about this.
They're great movies.
Every panel will talk about this. How do you know? What is it? I don't know. What was it about the vampire movies? Bela Lugosi and that people were like attracted to. What was it? I don't know. What is it? What is it? Look, we're still here. Do you know? It's psychological.
Well, Dawn is just one of the best zombie movies ever.
It's just one of the best movies.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's interesting. It's fun.
And he did it. George Romero did it.
Hey, George. Way ahead of his time.
Actually, when you pointed, I thought he was going to come walking out.
Ah, that guy. That guy.
Everybody,
Surprise! We should have had somebody made up as George to walk around the block.
We got more questions?
And suffer.
We have a little bit more time.
Hey, come on up.
Yellow shirt man.
Why did he
blue
suffer?
shirt man.
Why did George, a genius, why did he suffer for making this movie? He suffered for this movie. He's like Van Gogh. Van Gogh never sold, he sold one painting in his life to his brother, and now he's the most famous painter in the world ever of all time. George was like that. He's making these movies that are great movies, and while he was alive, he was suffering over it. And here we are. Everybody's enjoying it. It's just the weirdest thing.
Go ahead.
Number one, just such an honor to meet you gentlemen. I loved your roles in Dawn of the Dead. And Mr. Savini, I saw you last year, last summer in Miami Beach at SuperCon. So it's so cool to see you here again.
Okay.
Yeah. My question is, being special effects men, is there like one horror film or particular special effects person that you guys admire their work as fellow craftsmen?
Well, the horror film would be The Exorcist, and the man would be Dick Smith. Or Rob Bottin, or Lon Chaney, or Jack Pierce, or Stan Winston. I mean, I thank all of them in my heart.
Which one was the one that captured you first?
Which one was the one?
Which was the one that captured your heart first?
Lon Chaney.
Lon Chaney. Named his son Lon.
Yeah, I have a son named Lon. Come on up, come on up.
So, growing up, when I was young, the gore films were always the things you didn't watch. You weren't supposed to see. Nobody liked to talk about it. Fangoria was hidden on the back shelf. Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Ontario Film Review Board cut Day of the Dead. Every drop of blood was removed from Day of the Dead on video in Canada. And existed that way till the day the DVD came out. So, how do you paradigm that to the fact that now, I think a lot of the things you show on Walking Dead far exceed the gore that we had back in Dawn of the Dead, at the very least. What do you attribute that shift in society that
people were uptight. People were uptight. They felt that it was important to protect you from something that they felt was harmful. They didn't even give you a chance in Canada to decide for yourself if watching Day of the Dead unedited was harmful to you or not. And I have a writer friend of mine that used to say, oh, well, if horror movies are so hurtful and detrimental to society, then wouldn't the opposite be true, that uplifting movies would do the opposite effect? And if that's the case, they should just play a bunch of Disney movies in prisons and rehabilitate everybody. It doesn't fucking work that way.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way. And what I think what has happened over the last several decades is, you know, the policing of what you're allowed to see and not allowed to see has certainly relaxed, because you can find anything on the internet now. But the truth of the matter is, you have to count on the people watching it to understand that this is not real. It is fantasy, and it is being created solely to entertain you, to take you on a journey, to show you something that you would never see in your daily life.
And that's what I'm talking about when I say George was suffering. He was pushing the envelope. He forced it out there, and he said, this is good stuff, you're going to like it. And a lot of the people who were in charge did not like it, and they fought him, and they said, you can't do this, you can't see the blood. He was way ahead of his time. And like the people in the civil rights era, they were going, I'm going to do this. I don't care what you say because I know this is right. This is okay. And so I can say that about the civil rights because George always had a black guy as a hero way before anybody else did, and a woman as a hero way before other people did, because he saw that and he said, this is how real life is. People are just people, a hero, a villain, everybody, all of us are like that. And he pushed that, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so they were confused and scared of him and his movies. And that's why it took so long. Now it's okay. Now that they realize that it's making money, now it's okay.
Thank you.
Hello. I was just wondering if classic institutions like the Grand Guignol Theater had any effect on your work.
Wait, I didn't understand that.
Grand Guignol.
I was curious if the Grand Guignol Theater had any effect on your work.
No, but I just did the commentary for a new video that's coming out all about the Grand Guignol.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
What's it going to be called?
Good question. It's coming from Severin Films, David Gregory. I just did a whole intro voiceover for it. Yeah. But I didn't know about Grand Guignol when I was doing my
college. In 75, we talked about Grand Guignol. Yes, we did.
He's here to correct me every time I say
Yes,
something.
we did.
Wait, I thought that was my job.
Oh, that was his job, sorry. He's doing his job.
Getting it from both sides, my God. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got any more from this side?
We got some questions from this side?
Make your way up there.
Climb over those
No,
stairs.
no. Yeah.
No, you're before him. Well, maybe.
Fist fight. Fist fight.
Hold on, rock, paper, scissors.
We're really doing this?
The world like that.
There's a chance that winning rock, paper, scissors in front of you gentlemen might be one of the greatest moments of my life.
Yeah, but we would have used real rocks and real scissors,
Yeah, no
but
doubt.
that's just me.
So yeah, I mean, you guys are undisputed masters of your craft. You've been doing
Can't
it
hear
for a
you.
long time.
Can't hear
You're
you.
undisputed masters of your craft. You've been doing it a really long time. When was the last time you
No
saw-
master. These guys are masters of their craft. I'm just
But I
along
mean,
for the
what you've
ride.
been doing long enough
When was
to
the
have a
last-
really honed eye.
Don't
What's
let
the,
him interrupt anymore.
what's the last movie you saw where there was an effect that impressed you? Like, is there a point anymore where you say, how did they do that? Or are your eyes just too honed to the craft of effects and gags like that now?
I think the latter is true, yeah. We're too honed. It might make us curious as to how we have our own theory about it, but being fooled rarely happens to me.
The Howling.
Yeah, Tom's a better audience than I am. I mean, I really admire that and wish that I could have his sense of wonder, because he still sees every movie that comes out. I don't have that as much. I still love, but like for me, I would talk about, if I see a movie that I'm impressed by, I'll find a way to reach out to the filmmaker. Like when I saw Evil Dead Rise, I loved it. And I wrote Rob Tappert and Sam Raimi, and then I wrote the effects guy who lives in Australia, and I said, dude, I fucking love the movie, it was great. And then I saw When Evil Lurks, which I loved, and reached out to Damien, who lives in Argentina, and just told him how great I thought his movie was. In terms of makeups and prosthetics, I was just watching a show, there was a show called For All Mankind on Apple, that's about the space, like alternate universe of space travel. And the show's been on 4 seasons, and they have old age makeups on all the actors. And this last season, the makeups were really good. And my friend Jared Immel, a couple guys were doing it, and I wrote them and said, dude, those makeups, like they really look like real old people. And it also made me realize that if you have an actor who's not very good at bringing the makeup to life, it's going to look stiff. If you glue prosthetics to somebody and they don't know how to move, or you have to bring it to life. I just watched not long ago Creepshow 2, and when Tom's in the creep makeup and he brings it to life, you know? So the actors really have to help. He works right. We've always been lucky, but if you have an actor, like when we did Sin City, Mickey Rourke hated wearing that makeup so much that I think it bled into the menace that character had. Because when he walked on set, Frank Miller was like, oh shit, like almost backed away from him. And I was like, oh, that's just because Mickey hates the makeup and everything about it and everything around him. But that translated into a character that just is palpably terrifying.
Thank you.
Good question. Last question.
My question is, obviously you guys have impacted, film, horror, culture so much. How do you guys feel about the fact that you've also impacted local culture? Because as, a fan of film and horror growing up in the greater Pittsburgh area, it's always been like this great thing I can tell everyone of like, yeah, my local mall is where they film one of the greatest zombie movies of all time. And I come here, I've bought shirts here, I've seen like a million movies here. Do you ever think about the fact that specifically for people growing up in Pittsburgh?
You can ask Nick Mastandria, who's here, who went to Hollywood, and he's still working on all these movies. He said the last 5-6 movies he worked on was out of the country. Nobody shoots in Hollywood anymore. But when we were growing up as kids, Hollywood was the world center of movies. George was one of the first ones to shoot outside of Hollywood, locally, because he grew up here, and he stayed here, and he shot his movies here. He had his ideas and his dreams, and he shot here. And then everyone went, why can't we shoot wherever we are? Because of George.
You guys want to add anything before we end it? Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.